Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopijana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Jaya Rajadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Jaya Rajadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Jaya Rajadana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopidana Ballabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamunadira Varachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Varvedakacharya Asadhara Situshi Shriman His Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zavrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthapute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyatyade Satarane Om Agana Divanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamhayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanshena Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudhadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trivyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 22. Balimar surrenders his life. Text number 21 is on the board there. Shri Brahmo Vacha Bhuta Bhavana Bhutesha Deva Deva Jaganmaya Munchainam Rita Sarvasvam Nayam Arhati Nigraham Shri Brahma Vacha Bhuta Bhavana Bhuteshu Deva Deva Jaganmaya Munchainam Rita Sarvasvam Nayam Arhati Nigraham. Shri Brahmavacha, Lord Brahma said, Bhuta Bhavana, O Supreme Being, well-wisher of everyone, who can cause one to flourish. Bhuta Isha, O Master of everyone, Deva Deva, O worshipful deity of the demigods. Jagat Maya, O all-pervading one. Muncha, please release. Jagat Maya, sorry. Ainam, this poor Bali Maharaj. Rita Sarvasvam, now bereft of everything. Not. I am such a poor man. Arhati deserves. Nigraham, punishment. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma said, O well-wisher and master of all living entities, O worshipful deity of all the demigods, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, now this man has been sufficiently punished, for you have taken everything. Now you can release him. He does not deserve to be punished more. Purport. When Lord Brahma saw that Prahlad Maharaj and Vindhyavali had already approached the Lord to ask mercy for Bali Maharaj, he joined them and recommended Bali Maharaj's release on the grounds of worldly calculations. It sounds like they're ganging up on Vamanadev. First, Prahlad asks, then Vidyavali, it didn't work, so then Brahma has to join. 3. Text 22. So if Krishna doesn't answer your desire, just get a few devotees to pray for you. And maybe he'll soften up a little. Bali Maharaj had already offered everything to your lordship without hesitation. He has offered his land, the planets, and whatever else he earned by his pious activities, including even his own body. By offering even water, newly grown grass, or flower buds at your lotus feet, those who maintain no mental duplicity can achieve the most exalted position within the spiritual world. This Bali Maharaj, without duplicity, has now offered everything in the 3 worlds. How then can he deserve to suffer from arrest? Purport. Bhagavad Gita 9:26 it is said, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta priyachati taraham bhakti uparitam ashnami priyatatmanaha. Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind that if an unsophisticated person with devotion and without duplicity offers at the lotus feet of the Lord a little water, a flower, a fruit, or a leaf, the Lord accepts it. Then the devotee is promoted to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Brahma drew the Lord's attention to this subject and requested that he release Bali Maharaj, who was suffering being bound by the ropes of Varuna and who had already given up everything, including the 3 worlds and whatever he possessed. So what does it mean without duplicity? It says here, the Supreme Personality of God is so kind that if an unsophisticated person with devotion and without duplicity offers at the lotus feet of the Lord a little water, a flower, a fruit, a leaf, the Lord accepts it. What does that mean without duplicity? What does it mean to be duplicitous? Yeah. So what does this mean to be without duplicity? Yes. Being consciously doing it for Krishna's pleasure. We may think I'm engaged in devotional service, but if there's no Krishna and there's no devotion, there's service, we're engaged in service, everyone's engaged in service, but if we want to make it devotional service, Krishna has to be there. We have to be conscious of who we are. We have to do it to please Krishna. Then it's devotional service. Text 24. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Lord, Brahma, because of material opulence, a foolish person becomes dull-witted and mad. Thus he has no respect for anyone within the 3 worlds and defies my authority, even my authority. To such a person I show special favor by first taking away all his possessions. So check your pockets and see if something's left. A civilization that has become godless because of material advancement and opulence is extremely dangerous. Know of any civilization like that? Because of great opulence, a materialist becomes so proud he has no regard for anyone, and even refuses to accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The result of such a mentality is certainly very dangerous. To show special favor, the Lord sometimes makes an example of someone like Bali Maharaj, who is now bereft of all his possessions. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Sadarane. So this verse describes history from the material point of view of this material world that we're living in. Matter of fact, that's the whole history. It's a history of some person or some kingdom becoming powerful, conquering other places, subjugating them and exploiting them, and then getting destroyed. Getting all kinds of material opulence, getting the results, then becoming lazy, sinful, and then getting destroyed by others. And then the next government, I hesitate to call it civilization because it's not civilized. The next conquerors come along, they conquer, and they think they're going to dominate the world for some time. They get fat and lazy and get conquered by someone else. So similarly, in modern society, the whole history of Europe is just one group of people conquering another group of people, and getting fat and lazy and then getting conquered by another group of people. And in modern society, it's even worse. Usually they lasted some time before there was destruction. But nowadays, things go much faster. Like Roman civilization lasted for hundreds of years, and the Greek civilization lasted for hundreds of years, and this present civilization won't last even a couple of hundred years. And yet everyone's convinced everything's all right. It's just going to go on the way it always goes on. You can ask the refugees who are flocking in from Ukraine, everything all right? Is this what you thought was going to happen? So the point is that this is all Krishna's kindness. If people had the consciousness of exploitation and material nature reciprocated and increased their desire for exploitation unlimitedly, encourage them to do it, then people would go deeper and deeper into the modes of material ignorance. But material nature is so kind. The British civilization, they said the sun never set on Britain, and now the sun practically never rises on England. They were so proud that they, by cheating, basically speaking, cheating people, they weren't expert at goodness, they're expert at simply exploitation. And therefore Krishna took everything away from them, or practically. And now all they're good at is creating money out of nothing, and still cheating people. So similarly, the other countries in the world who become prominent simply by cheating, by getting people to work for nothing, for no real benefit, and getting them to exploit people who are weaker, the idea that this is their duty, or they deserve to conquer others because they're strong and you're weak, and therefore because there's no God, there's no laws of nature, there's no karma, we can do whatever we want, we can pretend that we're God and conquer you. and then they turn on each other, and then who's ever the last, they're the winner. I remember there was a movie called The Twilight Zone. You've heard of The Twilight Zone? So in this series, The Twilight Zone, you've seen The Twilight Zone? It's famous. Quite simplistic, but at least they had a message, unlike most of the... So in this Twilight Zone, there was one man, he only liked to read books. That's what he did all day long. Matter of fact, he read so many books, he needed very strong eyeglasses to read books. His work, he'd just find excuses in his work. He was working in a bank. So he always found excuses where he could sneak out and find time to read a book. So one day he snuck out and went into the vault of a bank. And he was reading his book, and there's some shaking, he came out, atomic bomb had come and wiped out the whole planet. But he was left. So now he had a time to read books. He had all the time in the world to read books. But then he was stumbling along, looking for some books to read, and he fell, and he crushed his glasses. So now he had all the time in the world, but he couldn't read books. So that's modern civilization. They think, let me destroy everyone, and then I'll be left and I can enjoy without any problem, no competition. Then there's nothing to enjoy. You've destroyed everything. Anyhow, this is the dream of the materialist. Like Kamsa, it's not something new. Kamsa was thinking the same way. Let me kill my father Ugrasena. Let me conquer with my friends Palambasura, Jarasandha, Morasura. Let me conquer the world, and then I can enjoy this world peacefully, conquer all my enemies. But Krishna had a different idea. As a matter of fact, all these demons were all killed. But that doesn't mean that there were no more demons. There's always plenty of demons around, just to keep the devotees enlivened. Therefore, we should not think that if there is some problem, that it's by accident or it's unfortunate. But Krishna has a way of taking people's opulence away so they can actually become humble. Well, hopefully they can become humble rather than depressed. Pious people become humble. Ignorant, arrogant people become depressed. Can anyone give an example of a demon who became depressed when his opulence was taken away? Like Duryodhana, he became depressed when he thought he was going to lose the war. Or Jarasandha. Jarasandha is a better example. Jarasandha, he attacked Mathura. And the first time he attacked, Krishna came out with a little force of army. And Jarasandha had, I think, 18 Akshauhini divisions of soldiers, millions of soldiers. So it looked like the battle was more or less determined. They could fire so many weapons that there wouldn't be any space between the arrows or the clubs or anything else they threw. So they started to throw. Krishna came out, blew his conch shell. All the citizens of Mathura became enlivened. All the soldiers, all the millions and millions of tens of millions of soldiers on Jarasandha's side became afraid. The battle began. The weapons were being thrown like drops of rain in a torment at Krishna and his army. And then Krishna started to fire his saranga bow, And Balaram came out with his club, and they started to slaughter the soldiers, so that there was so much slaughter going on that it was compared to the amount of blood coming out of the soldiers' bodies created an ocean. Those who were cowards, their hair stood on end in fear. And those who were heroes, they marveled at Krishna's wonderful feat. In any case, the dead elephants were just like islands in the ocean of blood that was formed. The hands and legs that were cut off looked like they were seaweed floating in the ocean of blood. The jewels were like pebbles, and the gold ornaments were like pebbles floating in the ocean. And finally, they killed everyone. Krishna and Balaram killed all the soldiers of Jarasandha, and Balaram arrested Jarasandha with the ropes of Varuna, chastised him, and then Krishna said, "Let the guy go." He didn't say guy because there was no such word. He said, "Let him go." Because Krishna had a plan, let him go out and get soldiers again. He can come back here, and we can kill them all again. That way I wouldn't have to bother going to his kingdom to kill all these soldiers. He can send them here and I can kill them. Make things more convenient. So Jarasandha was let off, and what happened to him? He became depressed. But how did he get over his depression? Does anyone know? Which pills did he take? How did he get over his depression? Yeah, actually the other members of the aristocracy and his family, they said, actually it was just, there's nothing wrong with your fighting tactics. It's just a little misfortune, that's all. Little misfortune. 32 million of your soldiers got killed. Well, what to do. You take the good with the bad. Or the bad with the good. Anyhow, he became enlivened again, organized the soldiers, more soldiers, went back to Mathura to try again. He tried 17 times. I mean, that's determination. I imagine he was depressed every time. Finally, Krishna said, we don't want to give this guy a heart attack. So the 18th time he had a date with Rukmini. He couldn't miss it, so he fled to go to the date. Anyhow, it's an example that you have so much opulence, you lose it, you get depressed. But pious people, they become humbled, and they become introspective. Why have I been put in this position? Who to turn to? Yasya anugrahami harishet tad anugrahami harishet tad dhanam shanai. That such persons, then they realize that my only shelter is Krishna. Actually, our only shelter is Krishna, because if we're afraid of losing something, there should be no fear of losing anything. Why is that? Why shouldn't we be afraid of losing what we have now? How do you know you don't have anything? Krishna has everything, but we think we have everything. But even if we think we have everything, or whatever we have, why shouldn't we be afraid of losing it? Because at every moment we're losing it anyhow. Is anyone falling on the ground now? Falling on the temple ground, crying, I lost my body, I have a different body now. At every moment we're changing our body. Every moment everything's changing. Even what we think we possess is changing at every moment. It's not exactly the same, it's different. So no one's lamenting the change of this body, so why should we, or the change of the things that we have, why should we lament when we finally realize that it's completely changed? Because it's always completely changing. We just think it's the same, that's all. So when we get over the illusion, so part of the thing is that we're an illusion. this ever-changing material world never satisfies ourselves completely anyhow. Anyone completely satisfied now? I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to sit here in this room for the next 20 years. I'm completely satisfied. And if someone comes in, offers me prasadam, I'll take it. And if they pick me up and throw me out into the park, I'll sit in the park till the end, because I'm just satisfied. Trivoli Park. And the squirrels come and give me some nuts, then I'll take them. No, everyone is dissatisfied. No one likes, no one thinks that their present situation is complete and perfect. So why do we think the next change of circumstances that we're under, that's going to be complete and perfect in the material world? It's impossible, because that's going to change anyhow. Even if for 1 second all our desires were fulfilled and we got exactly everything we wanted, the next second everything would be different. And we'd be probably closer to losing everything that we worked so hard for. We go up, I'm finally there. We're down. Therefore, the conclusion is that one should take shelter of Krishna somehow or another, even before everything is taken away. Everything is not ours, surely, and everything will be realized it's not ours sooner or later. So in the meantime, we should take shelter of Krishna. Whether we think everything is ours or not, we should take shelter of Krishna, so that when finally everything is visibly and finally taken away from us in this lifetime, then we still have Krishna left. Rather than waiting for everything to be taken away, then we look for Krishna. Better to get Krishna, and then we won't worry about everything being taken away. Otherwise, that's all we'll be doing. Just like after this class, everyone's going to probably go and take prasadam. Why are we taking prasadam? Because we don't want our body to disappear. We also want to get some energy for devotional service. That's why it's prasadam. But basically speaking, most people eat. They get some pleasure from it, but most people aren't even really interested so much in the pleasure, because they're eating, they're talking. Even they eat some places, I don't know about here, they walk down the street. Did you ever see that? Someone eating and walking down the street while they're eating? What's that? What? She used to do it, and you're still alive. Krishna bless you. Yeah, so how much can you actually enjoy the taste of the food when you're looking at the traffic coming by, making sure it's a red light? Oh, this is pink, this food. No, most people are just eating just to survive. They think, if I don't eat, I'm going to die. If I don't get my 5 meals a day and my 15 snacks, I'm going to die. So everyone's trying to survive, but no one survives. Therefore, people are in extreme anxiety over something that's inevitable, because they don't really have any final goal other than just surviving for the sake of surviving, and then enjoying a little sense gratification in between. Anyhow, I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions, comments? I think we should put everyone online, that way we'll get more questions.
So, Avadhutarai Prabhu is asking a question. Vishwanath mentions a principle used for materialistic persons to shyatu durjana, let the opponent be satisfied. So the question, how much and what we can compromise in preaching?
Let the opponent be satisfied?
Let the opponent be satisfied.
What is that context?
How much and what we can compromise in preaching.
We don't compromise.
Huh? Vishwanath mentions a principle used for materialistic persons. Tushyatu durjana. Let the opponent be satisfied.
I'd never heard of that. I don't know what they're talking about. What's the context? People are fighting to the death and you think, well, I got to satisfy my opponent here, kill me. Is that the way people think? People will only be satisfied if they get what they want. Your opponent, I don't know if that's exactly the right word. Sometimes you have to, in business dealings, you have to give a little bit in order to get what you want. You have to satisfy them. Even if you give them just some sweet words. Like you're selling a book on the street. Especially to the ladies, you tell them how beautiful they look and how wonderful they are. And then they're willing to give up money for that, just to be flattered. So you've satisfied them and you give what you want. And even men nowadays, you tell them how handsome they are, how intelligent they are, and they think, well, here's my devotee, how can I benedict you? It's part of being God, I give benedictions. But I don't know opponents. People playing chess, they don't think, well, let me lose and satisfy my opponent. No, they fight to the end. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Grandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanand.